Captain's Log Supplemental.
Hey Jeremy, you know those race cars you're busy building?
Yeah, I do. I
You,
got one that I'm looking at every day.
you know what I don't see you working on?
You don't see me working on the amazing Sentinel system yet.
That's true. It would take all of 10 minutes for you to have one.
And it's very quick and easy to install.
It is. It is. And we could watch you when we are not at the race with you and see how you're doing. And then we can call you up when you get out of the car and tell you everything you did wrong.
And I love that because so many years I've been driving and not been able to see what I'm doing.
I know.
And now we can.
I know. You know what I'd like to do with the video? My most favorite thing is I take the video and I load it on YouTube and then I send it to my coach and say, look at 26 minutes and 17 seconds. Look at this one lap and tell me what I can do better. And every single time, you know what they say?
Everything.
Exactly. Precisely. So with the Sentinel system, you get instantaneous feedback plus useful feedback that unfortunately is accurate for my driving.
I think it's accurate for all of our driving.
Pretty much. Yeah, that's probably true. Yep. But you need to get one in your car, sir.
Yes, I do. And with the discount code that you're going to tell everybody, they can save 10% on this awesome system.
Yep. Trouble-free. I haven't had an issue getting video every time we've gone out with the Sentinel. It's always worked. Can't say the same for some of the other systems we've tried. So I don't know. It's on the podcast notes down there. Don't do it while you're driving, though. We like to have our listeners live. It's good.
From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher, and their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicki Fisher, and our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. Their mission: to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training podcast. I am the only host tonight because everybody ditched me, but it's okay. We are reporting from the rental car studio. Am I still here? No?
Yeah, you're here.
Yep.
I got you. Yeah.
Okay. Rental car studio. We could play Guess the Rental Car, but that's somebody else's podcast game, so we'll let them have it. We have two big-time guests for us, professional drag racers, which well, not that we know much about any kind of racing, but we know very little about this. I've seen it when I was growing up, and like to welcome to the podcast, Ron and Jon Capps. Welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here. Yeah, it's unique to get us both on at the same time, but my introduction's pretty cool, but it pales in comparison to my brother's, which is he still gets to dry race part-time, comes out to race, but he also does stunt work, and you can see his dress. He just left the track. He teaches people how to drive really cool cars. So
Awesome.
Pretty cool that this worked out, that we could get on your show. And it's even cooler that we got on and you were ordering fast food in your rental car in order to do the show. So we feel kind of special, right, John?
Yeah, I wanted some onion rings.
I can drive back through. I'll hit mute when we're going through, but I didn't want to get that scratchy throat feeling for the podcast. So the only prepared question I have is, how many surf shop jokes do you guys get with your first names?
Yeah, all of them.
All of them, yeah.
All right. I was looking at that. I'm like, well, that is probably way too convenient for me not to make a joke about it. I'm sure I'm not the first. So
Yeah,
our parents had a great sense of imagination, but they didn't even know then.
Mm-hmm. Not a problem. All right. So in case people aren't familiar with you, could you guys kind of give a little bit of a background on what you guys have been up to and what got you here today? Well, besides, you were silly and you made bad decisions, which is all racing, but that's why you're on the podcast. But
Yeah.
a little bit of background.
Well, I'll start, John. Him and I grew up with a dad that raced, not only raced, we grew up in a little town in California called San Luis Obispo, had a drag strip half hour away in Santa Maria, California. Of course, you went 3 hours each direction. You would go to some of the biggest name drag strips in the world and to where the birthplace of drag racing was. And you had Pomona and Orange County and Ontario and Lyons drag strip. And then you had Fremont and all, and then Bakersfield, which we got to go to. So we traveled with our dad who raced part-time. Ironically, our mom was very involved to the point where she actually drove when we were younger. We all know the Shirley Cha-Cha Muldowney that we've seen the movie and read about, but our mom was pretty involved in racing. So it was normal for us to have our mom out in the shop or the garage of our house at any given time helping our dad build an engine. And our dad also helped other people with their cars. He worked at a dealership for 30 something years for Chevrolet. So it was a very car oriented childhood for both John and I. Go-karts, motorcycles, and just a lot of fun. And our dad there was always somebody else's car in our garage that he was helping or fixing or whatever it might be. So it was a very cool time. We're 5 years apart. We're very competitive, and we always found ways, whether it was on a big wheel or trikes or playing with the Hot Wheels, building Hot Wheels sets when we were a kid, whatever it was, it's always been a race of some type. And so it's cool that we've both grown up and to make money at it, first of all, but to have two pretty cool jobs. Last year we just won a world championship, and he's off in Europe filming the Ferrari movie and then Gran Turismo. And so I would wake up in the mornings to have coffee, and I would get all the videos from the set and the scenes of crashing and all the cool Ferraris. So it was a pretty cool time this last couple years for both of us. So John, I don't know what you want to add to that.
Other than being the younger brother, 5 years.
Yeah. I won't go there.
So you guys said you made money racing? I thought that was like part of rule number one. That is not possible.
Well, he does.
Well,
okay.
We kind of both make money around cars, which is rare. This is my 30th season driving professionally in NHRA. My first job, I was hired by the legendary Don the Snake Perdome, right? We played with the Snake and the Hot Wheels, Snake and Mongoose. So my career path kind of was cool for a lot of reasons, but we're two very lucky people that have gotten to race cars and not go broke because of it, or actually made money in the business. Wow. I became a team owner 3 years ago. Of the 30 years I've been driving, I'm still driving, but now I'm a team owner. So it's a little different for me, but it's been a lifelong dream. But so to answer your question, you can make money. You got to have good partners and good sponsors and things like that. But there are people that will hawk their houses and mortgages just to go race a car, as you know. And it happens all the time. So we're very, very lucky in the sense that we've gotten to make a living doing it.
I do a lot of consulting for car companies, putting different driving programs together, ride and drive programs, tire testing stuff. I coach at the BMW Performance Center in Thermal, California.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the flip side, more of the OEM side of things. I also do a lot of stunt work for commercials and movies and different fun stuff. So I don't always get a chance to race funny cars every year, but I get a chance to get in really cool stuff.
Sounds like you guys are living the dream, or most people's dream, as far as racing goes, because you're not in debt up your eyeballs, and you're having fun, and you're actually coming out on the plus side. So that's awesome.
Pretty fortunate.
Yeah, no complaints.
Yeah. So, in case someone hasn't felt a funny car go by, or in case somebody hasn't seen one on TV, that one's harder to imagine. Let's describe these, because they're anything but funny as far as machine goes, but it's a cool name.
Yeah. So the funny car hasn't changed a lot in the actual car itself, wheelbase and all that since the 70s. Like I said, the Snake and the Mongoose, Hot Wheels, those funny cars back then. Um, Obviously the power level. The funny cars now that we drive, John and I, are about 13,000 horsepower. You can imagine. So you're talking one of my cylinders, just one makes more than my teammates Chase Elliott's NASCAR engine by far.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of power, a lot of torque, 0 to 330 miles per hour in 3.8 seconds. And as a fan, it's right in front of your eyes. So you watch that happen. It's positive G's of like 6 G's when you go down the track and about a -8 when the parachutes hit. They are the most, I always try to compare. Both of us have driven dragsters, which are longer and skinnier and very,
Yeah.
not as physically demanding to drive. You don't point, you just kind of tweak them a little bit. The funny car, on the other hand, you're really driving a lot, and it's the most unearthing, unpredictable. John's raced USAC midgets. He's driven all cars all over the world. I've gotten to do dirt racing and other stuff, and there's nothing on the planet like when we get back in a funny car. It is, you don't know if it's going left or right. It's going to blow up. You just don't know. It's like entering orbit with no plan, and it's awesome, but sometimes you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people don't see, especially on TV, like if you're in person, it's a little more obvious. It's not just, line up, press on the gas, pull, shoot at the end. There's a little bit more going on, both behind the wheel and in your head. I don't know how you keep your head conscious at the G's you guys pull, but I guess you get used to it after a while, maybe. I don't know. But it is not just, line the car up, make sure it's pointed straight, and then, hit the brake at the end. So something to see, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I drove, like you said, USAC midgets and different dirt cars. So, you're pretty busy on the steering wheel, and these things are just as busy, in 1,000 feet as it would be, a quarter-mile dirt track. So,
Mm-hmm. So when I was growing up, we were, about 8 air miles from Englishtown, which, isn't a racetrack anymore. I think it's a parking lot for some cars, but that's disappointing and sad all at the same time. But the tracks were quarter mile, and I think there was some safety changes that made them a little shorter. Not recently, but relatively recently from when I went to drag racing. Is that still the case? Has anything changed in that aspect?
Yeah, well, ironically, that track is the reason they shortened all of the drag strips. NHRA, it was an accident that was there.
Yeah.
Gosh, what, John, 15 years ago? Scott Coletta was killed. That
Yep.
track had been there so long that that road was at the end. They were building houses. You couldn't add on to the shutdown area, yet our cars would get faster and faster every year. He went off the end, a very bad accident, killed him. And so the very next race, they shortened it from a quarter mile that it's been since the 50s to
Mhm.
1,000 feet. So it's just 320 feet shorter track, but we're already back up to speeds almost 340.
Yeah.
But that's a legendary track. John and I have been there many times. Just it's a bummer not to go there. A great market, great everything. It's just but that track is the reason that we are running shorter tracks.
Everybody always blames New Jersey. It's fine.
Yeah.
I figured out why everybody in New York's always mad, just because the light at the end of the tunnel is in Jersey.
Yeah, yeah. That's why you got to pay the tolls, because I got all the jokes. I grew up there. It's fine. It's fine. It's okay. Yeah, I forgot that was actually at. Yeah, that's a bummer, because they used to do the summer nationals. There was the one we always go to,
Yeah.
and then
Sunday.
yeah, exactly. And then the local friends would privateers, but they'd have their fun cars too. So, we'd hear them rumble, and we know a race was coming for the weekend. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah, I did the last couple Night of Fires there during the 4th of July week. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was always fun to watch the kids when the jet-powered bus would go streaking down the racetrack. And, they'd be like, "When can I get that to go to school?" But that's a little different from what you guys do. Um, so so NHRA, if I remember right, there was NHRA and IHRA. I'm not sure they're still both there, but you guys are mostly U.S. national. Do you stay all U.S. still?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Trying to think.
Okay.
I mean, IHRA, John actually ran IHRA for a while, but I think they were all in the States. They used to run Canada, a couple races NHRA did, but we haven't been to Canada. Uh, I went to Australia a few years ago and ran a special race. The drag racing's big over there still.
Yeah.
But the actual NHRA national events that we run are all 20 races across the country, um, and nothing international yet.
Yeah. So so from what I remember, there's it's so different going to one of your races than to go to like a sports car race or a NASA race or any type of like human looking car, because your cars are the most reminiscent of human cars, but they're kind of silly puttied a little bit. They're a little longer. They're a little different, but eventually you can figure out what they are. Is what you guys have to do to get the car prepped between makes what we have to do, because we do endurance racing. We have to do, a nut and bolt check and maybe check our alignment overnight. You guys have a little bit more involved uh, procedures in between. And I was hoping my beautiful bride, who is our team mechanic, at least for our car, and I've been dying to get her to go to a race with you guys to see what you guys do. So I can bust out the what are you complaining about? Look what they have to do. But
Yeah.
we'll see how good that philosophy goes. But someday I'll get her to see that. But could you kind of summarize what you guys do in between, or maybe before the first race, if they're different?
Yeah. So I mean, Ron will tell you, Ron's crew guys are probably some of the best in the business. Between rounds, if the car makes it to the starting line and stages the car, so basically the engine's got to come completely apart. And Ron can kind of go into more depth on that.
Yeah, our cars, it's about 8 crew members, a car chief, a crew chief, and assistant crew chief. And everybody's got a small job. And they come, like John said, they come completely apart. Nitromethane it's 40 something dollars a gallon.
Mm-hmm.
It's very volatile, very scary if it's not in the correct hands. But when applied to one of these, and it makes 13,000 horsepower and flames and catapults the driver, 330 miles an hour. But what generally happens when you see it on TV is it's come back after a run, scorching hot, back to the pit area. They attack this thing. It comes completely apart, normally down to the bare block. The clutch
Right.
guy will pull the clutch off the back, but the engine block stays. They'll check the crankshaft. They'll pull all the pistons and rods out. And if everything's okay, the block and the crank stay, and they put a new clutch on the back, and the new cylinder has new pistons, rods, and all that. If something's wrong with the bottom end of it, out it goes, and in comes a fresh engine. And they will have it ready to fire back up from the time they get the pit area and tear it apart. And usually now with live TV, it's about 40 minutes. So they will have it completely apart together, fuel back in it, oil back in it, and the driver back in the cockpit and warming it up on the jack stands in 30 to 50 minutes. It's pretty wild to watch. It's poetry in emotion. It's just fun to watch these crew guys just annihilate this thing and just check things and back together, and then it fires up. It's pretty amazing. I think it's better than the actual racing, just the pit area if you're a gearhead. Because the cool thing about NHRA that you don't get at a lot of races, some are getting that way a little more, but most of the major auto racing series doesn't have the fan interaction or the closeness. So in NHRA, every ticket you buy, if you just buy a ticket to go sit in the grandstands, you're going to get to go to the pit area. Every ticket is a pit pass, and you literally get to go right up to John Forrest and get his autograph and watch his crew 5 feet away tear it apart and put it together, or our team or John's or whoever. So the sport hasn't changed in that sense. It's a very fan friendly sport. Unlike a lot of them. You can't get close to drivers in NASCAR or IndyCar, definitely not Formula One. So
Nope.
the gearhead part is very cool that our sport brings for the guy that at home that's got his hot rod and maybe wants to fix his car up.
Yeah. So do your crew mates, do they get like chef hands? Because I imagine when the car, it's not that long between the end of the, we'll call it a runway, I don't know, track, and getting back to the pit. It's not a whole lot of time, and something tells me the car is not fully cooled off. So do you get like chef hands and you just get used to it, or you have like
Oh,
really?
they've got.
He's
Go
got
ahead,
these
John.
gloves that are these giant mittens. The clutch comes out at over 1,000 degrees, all the clutch discs, and they'll put them on the ground and they're still smoking. And, people try and come close to them. By the time you get close to it, you can't touch it because it's radiating a lot of heat. And to watch these guys, they do get, like you said, chef's hands, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's like watching army ants tear something apart. It's meticulous and it just comes apart and you turn around, next thing you know, it's back together.
Yeah, I remember watching it growing up, and I remember it being more impressive to me than, everybody talks about the pit stops and how fast the pit stops are and various forms of racing. I'm like, yeah, but they're changing tires. I mean, I'm not that they don't do it elegantly and very quickly, but I mean, what you guys have to go through, because you're not exactly nice to your equipment. I mean, they always say that our endurance racing, we're basically burning our car to the ground every weekend. You guys are doing it like multiple times in a day.
So a lot like the driving spec Miatas, driving slow cars fast, right?
Yeah.
Watching these guys is the same meticulous, way out of super fast. It would take somebody a week to put an engine together, and these guys
Yeah.
take it back apart and put it back together in less than a half an hour, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And they're not small engines. I mean, obviously, they're quite large. And nothing is. I remember we have I live about 2 miles from where Joe Amato is. I think he's still there. There's rumor he lives right there. So at one of the local restaurants, you have one of his bent uh, pistons with the shaft, and it's just bent and hanging on the wall. And it's about the displacement of our one Miata, or at least it looks that way compared to what we're used to playing with. So, you guys aren't very nice to your equipment. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Well, John and I have a real good friend that puts V8s in Miatas called Monster
Yeah.
Miata. He's my neighbor and good friends of ours. So we knew we liked him right away when he had a business card that said Monster Miata. We could figure out. So he's got the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Anybody that puts an LS in a Miata's got to be about right.
Yeah.
I will say that I think that's probably smarter than the path we went. We had a turbo Miata, and we do endurance racing, and those two don't seem to get along very well.
Ooh,
Too much heat, but
Yeah.
it's okay. So you guys do 20 races. Is your 2025 season really begun in earnest, or are we kind of in between? Are we getting started soon?
No, we're starting a couple weeks down in Florida. There's a legendary race called the Gator Nationals. It's one of there's the U.S. Nationals, Gator Nationals, Summer Nationals, and there used to be the Spring Nationals and of course the Winter Nationals. That was all there was back in the 60s and
Right.
70s for NHRA. So now, of course, we have many more races, but we're kicking off the Gator Nationals. It's one of the most prestigious. NASCAR just kicked off with their biggest race, the Daytona 500. It's not our biggest, but it's close. U.S. National is still the biggest. But
Right.
so our season kicks off in Florida. It's a great place to start the season. And then we get a weekend, I think, off, and then there's 3 in a row on the West Coast. And so John will be racing Phoenix, Pomona, California, and Las Vegas. And then it goes off back east. So it's kind of planned out by NHRA pretty decently that, it kind of swoops around, tries to stay together. But 20 races, and the last 6 are for the playoffs. So they reset the points with 6 to go, and it starts a run for the championship. So you got to be one of the top 10 in those last 6. And we finished the season back in LA and Pomona at the World Finals in November, and that's where you want to be crowned, champion.
Sounds amazing. So who got Summer Nationals? Just personal curiosity, since it's not in New Jersey anymore.
Nobody. They actually ran it. John didn't. I think that one Pomona race, they tried to experiment and at a summer race in LA, and it was about 180,000 degrees. And
that doesn't sound like a good plan.
I loved it because we won the race, but it was miserable for fans, and it was just hot.
That was right at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah, that's right. It was coming out of COVID, right?
Yeah, because I know it was going in because I got it.
Yeah. So they tried saying it was the Summer National. It didn't go over real well, especially people on the East Coast. But
Right.
I think after that, they kind of left the name alone.
Well, that's a bummer. It's a good name. You need that guy with
Great
the funny
name.
voice coming on. But
Yeah.
so exactly. So how much does the weather affect your engines or I guess it maybe your clutch setups? Because I think if I remember right, I'm you guys correct me because I am speculating, but from what I remember, a lot of it was the clutch guy kind of took care of what he could or she could to make it so that you went down fairly quickly and the engine was just kind of full throttle as best, unless you start doing the pedal fest, which was always no fun to watch from the outside. And I can imagine on the inside it's less fun. But is that a factor? Is the weather a factor? Is it still the clutch that's the magic juice?
Well, you're right with both of them.
God, look at that. I knew something. How about that? This is the first podcast. I'm 600 in. I finally knew something.
Yeah, I mean, they're both important, but one definitely affects the other one. Ron has a little bit more in-depth knowledge on some of that stuff, but all the fuel timers and clutch timers and everything goes in, but definitely, the air temperature and water grains and everything is so down to, the minute measurements. The crew chiefs do such an amazing job with, trying to make the car consistent when the weather's doing everything but being consistent.
Mm. So with the race being shorter than the traditional quarter mile, which probably ruins half of the good drag racing songs that were ever written, but at least did that change? Because there was a time where it looked like a transition to me between a 1-gear solution and a 2-gear solution. Is that still in effect, or is it settled down and everybody's got kind of the same toy?
Yeah, it's for nitro cars, the top fuel dragsters and funny cars. It's a 320 gear ratio, so that never changed. Even going from quarter mile to 1,000 feet, and years ago they had 2 speeds in them. But probably the last 25, 30 years at least, they've had direct drive. So we mash the gas and hang on, and there's no shifting involved. But the speeds, like I said, were right back within like a year and a half of shortening the track after Scott's accident. Didn't take long for the crew chiefs to figure out how to get right back to 320 miles an hour at that point. Now we went 338 a few years ago, and somebody just went 340 at the end of last season. So yeah, the crew chiefs are so good at, just it's fun to watch these. And they've thrown a lot of rules and things at them, but for them to, within a few years, they have them running 330 on a short track compared to what it was, is pretty neat.
So I know this is going to come as a surprise to you when we're in our our Honda Civic or our BMW E46. We don't go 300 miles an hour. I know it's a surprise. You guys are sitting down. I figured I could ask this question. Does it feel like 300 miles an hour, or does it? You kind of get used to it, or is it always like, whoo, that was something?
Well, the first run of the year definitely feels like 300 miles an hour. I mean, I don't get a chance to run, all the races like Ron does. So when I jump in, I get thrown to the wolves. Usually the first qualifying session, I sometimes haven't been in the car for a few months, and so I've got to very quickly, figure things out and, not abort a run because I didn't keep the car in the groove or something like that, where everybody else is, week in and week out. You have repetition makes it a little bit easier. So yeah, when you haven't done it for a few months, you jump in the car, it reminds you pretty quickly exactly how fast you are going.
I can imagine, because we have winter rust when the off season comes in and we try to resurrect our car from near dead. I can imagine having that type of rust at the speed you guys go would be, well, I'd be terrified. I don't know if that's the best word for it, but I guess you don't have that much time to worry about it though. It's just, I don't know.
No,
Wow.
you don't.
So 20 races makes a season. Is there kind of I know in Formula One they have like, an engine's supposed to last, 4 per season or something. Do you guys have any restrictions on your equipment, or is it, the less you break, the cheaper the race or the cheaper the season, or
That'd be amazing if we could make 4 engines last the whole season.
I didn't think
Yeah.
you could, but
Yeah.
you guys are not nice to your equipment. I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
But now that he's a team owner, he gets, both sides of it.
I can't even imagine measuring 13,000 horsepower.
I can't imagine. I found out today that our valves are $44 a piece.
Wow. Well, luckily you only have
I used
one
to
per
take them and
cylinder.
sign them and give them to fans when I drove for another guy. And then I found out today, I was like, what? $44 and they're gone, one run.
And you guys have, is it still an 8-cylinder?
Yes.
And
500
4
cubic
valves?
inch limit. Most people run 490, 495, but 500 cubic inch limit. There's some parameters as far as cylinder heads you can't change. Same crankshaft. Pretty much everybody runs the same equipment. The trick is the clutch department and things like that for different crew chiefs and who's better than who else. But
Yeah.
everybody's pretty much got the same equipment.
Well, I mean, it's not spec racing, but most of it's fairly even. So I'm still going back to the pit stops or the engine. You call them pit stops, or you call them engine swaps, or what do you guys call
We're going to let you call them pit stops because it's
All
funny
right.
when you say it that way. But
I just keep thinking of Penelope pit stop.
yeah.
Yep. She looks good in pink, though. That's okay.
Yeah.
So you guys have like special tools, or are you just normal mechanic stuff, or
Normal. Yeah. All the major tool manufacturers are out there in NHRA. And our tool company is part of Napa's systems, named after the originator, the guy that founded Napa, Carlisle. And they actually came out with the tools about a decade ago and had our race team help make them better. So the people that were buying them, they're actually tools my guys of the crew team had advised them on things, what to do better here and how it fits in your hand better here and things like that. But yeah, all the major manufacturers are in drag racing, so it's a very big. In fact, they're probably the biggest sponsors, right, John? There's probably every series or every major tool company sponsors a major sponsor on a car.
Yeah.
So they're very involved.
so Vicki has
Yeah.
no excuse. 45 minutes. I should be expecting our engine swap. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't
Now-
want to drive it though.
Yeah, right. That's true love.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think we got a couple more years before we get to 45 minutes. Well, she isn't 8 people, so I guess we could give her a couple more minutes then. Maybe an hour. We'll give her an hour. That sounds good. So, season's about to start. Are you guys still on ESPN primarily, or are you? There's no more Speed Channel, so we don't have any of that fun stuff.
we're on Fox. NHRA
You're on
is
Fox? Okay.
Fox Sports One. NHRA has their own app, a streaming app that you can also get. It's behind the scenes, runs all day long, but all of our shows are on Fox Network.
Okay. And then, like, obviously, all our listeners will be rooting for you guys, but is there like is there other favorites for this season coming up that you guys are looking at as your chief competition, or is it fairly diverse?
Pretty diverse. I mean, we got a lot of girls in the series.
Yeah.
They do really well. The cool thing is, I guess not really cool, but you have to qualify whether you're John Force or whoever. You've got to be one of the top 16. There's no provisionals or guarantees. So like when John is coming to race, when he does it part-time with a team that doesn't go to all the races, you have to make the top 16 over teams, even teams like that. And there's a lot of big sponsored teams that sometimes aren't there on race day because they didn't out qualify a part-time team. So it's good and bad. It's very David and Goliath like because
Hmm.
fans in the grandstands will cheer for, people like that. And um, so it's kind of cool. You got to make the field. You got to be one of the top 16, and there's nothing saying that you're going to be guaranteed your sponsor will be there Sunday. So it creates a little bit of anxiety for a big sponsor team, and then a lot of excitement for these part-time teams that come because they want to go knock off the John Forces
Yeah.
and so yeah, it's what makes the sport pretty cool.
So how many teams would be, a lot for a weekend? Like, is it
Well, it's a
18?
16 car field. Sometimes there's 18 cars. Sometimes there's 21 cars, like at the U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So usually for me coming in with a part-time team, it's our first thing is we want to make the show and qualify for the race, and that's an uphill fight if you can imagine. Going to
Yeah.
the runoffs and having a brand new car and a brand new team, right, and not knowing anything about the car showing up. That's kind of like what we deal with.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That's a true arrive and drive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. I have enough trouble when I drive in somebody else's car. Anyway, so racing season starts a week or two. This one will come out on this coming Monday, so we'll get it out early for you guys. We'll get you, a decimal point or something in your ratings, and you can thank us later. It'll be fine.
Appreciate you having us on for
Oh,
sure.
it's fine. It's fine. But
It's rare to get
before,
us together like this. He's off doing his stuff, and this doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
it's okay. Anything we can do to keep families together. That's we're a family friendly podcast.
The funny thing is, his first race is going to be in Gainesville. That same weekend, I'll be in Bakersfield, California, at the March Meet, which is a fuel and gas championship. I'm not sure which annual race it is, but it's a nostalgia race. So basically, the cars that I drive are bodies around the mid 70s,
Oh wow.
old Camaros and Mustangs, and everything's the rules are set around 1976. So whatever the rules were back in 1976, like the fuel pump was 28 gallons. So that's the parameters of what we have to do, but they're all modern parts. So it's kind of fun.
That sounds kind of cool.
Yeah.
I might want to watch both of them now.
Yeah.
Kind of interest. Any racing is good racing, and close racing is always fun. So it is amazing to see what you guys are able to do. That sounds really fun. Our first ever race was in a 74 Ford Capri. I think it was probably slightly less performance oriented than John's car, but 100% it was less performance oriented. But it's fun. So if people want to keep up with you guys, is there a convenient, simple place like Instagram or anything like that you guys use? Because I know fan interaction is always huge in racing, especially at your levels.
Yeah. Mine is Ron Capps 28, or it's Napa Racing. If you find Napa Auto Parts Drag Racing, that's our car, and we're on pretty much all the platforms for sure. And then John, he's running around the country. He's got his own.
I'm horrible at it.
Well, it seems like you're doing okay in spite of it. How about that?
The websites and social media, I'm horrible at.
Yeah, his Instagram DMs are not horrible though. You just have to watch where you're at. Watch where you're at in public when you open them.
We fully understand that. The one thing we're good at, we're not the fastest racing team in the world, but our paddock and our food game, solid, rock solid. So if you're ever nearby and you're hungry, come on by. We've always got plenty of food.
Appreciate it.
No worries. Gentlemen, I don't want to take your whole entire evening, and I do appreciate you coming on. We've been working on this one for quite a while. I was not going to let it go by. Snowstorm be damned. And I can't wait to watch you guys and keep up and see how this weekend goes. And now I got rooting interest in my team. I have my team to pick for. So good luck.
Well, I've been really digging your guys' stuff. I've been watching some of the past episodes, and your cornering Apex one was interesting.
Well, the goal was always, we started our podcast after, I think, our second time being on track ever. So obviously we were coming at it from the perspective of, industry experts and thousands of years of experience. So we either wanted to help people get started, because the faces people made when we said we were racing cars, they're like, what do you mean you're racing cars? You're not, you're like a normal person. I'm like, well, you can do it too. Or to help people get better. And thanks to people like you and some of our other guests, we have people on who know a whole lot more than we do. And hopefully we can expose them to all the different types of motorsports, because, fun with cars is fun.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, you guys are definitely drinking from a fire hose, trying to race, figuring it out at the same time, and putting a podcast together. Like, that's
we never
impressive.
said we were smart. We never said we were smart. We have so many cars on our team, and we only this year are going to duplicate one car. Like spares, no problem. Our first two cars was a 74 Capri and an 84 Mustang, 1 year only GT turbo. And I'm just like, none of these parts get together. Nothing is in common. Why are we doing this to ourselves? And we've continued to do that for, getting close to a decade now. So, someday we'll learn.
Right.
I don't know if we'll get to 45-minute engine swaps, but, it's not, at least we know what the limit is.
Yeah. Maybe you could do a 45-minute oil change.
Maybe. I don't know. It would be messy. I know that. We can make a mess in the paddock, that's for sure. But we have good food, so that's all that matters. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. And sorry we had so many back and forths on trying to get this one together. And so glad we got to do this. We got it done in time for the season, though, so that's important.
Perfect.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Oh, no
Thank
problem.
You.
Can't wait to see the weekend. Good luck, everybody.
You too.
Thanks.
See you, man.